For your consideration, sponsors include HBO Max presenting The Last of Us, nominated for 17 Emmys, including Outstanding Drama Series. In 2003, a parasitic fungal infection ravaged the planet, turning people into violent creatures known as the Infected. 20 years later, Joel, played by Pedro Pascal, is hired to smuggle 14-year-old Ellie, played by Bella Ramsey, to the rebel Fireflies. Season 2 picks up 5 years later as Joel and Ellie's past resurfaces, drawing them into conflict with each other and a world even more dangerous than the one they left behind. Don't miss the series The Hollywood Reporter calls thrilling and addictive, now streaming on HBO Max. Hi, everyone. Today, you're going to get to hear the fourth part of our fall preview series, with Esther Zuckerman joining me and Christopher Rosen to look at the indie Oscar powerhouse A24 and the other studios that are trying to follow their lead, mostly Mubi, but also including some offerings from Bleecker Street and even Lionsgate. We get into the two different Safdie brother movies that are both coming out from A24 this fall. What in the world is going on with the Jennifer Lawrence movie that everyone was talking about at Cannes? And then also whether a Jennifer Lopez Oscar campaign might actually work this time. After that, you will hear my conversation with Walton Goggins. He is Emmy nominated for The White Lotus, but is currently off riding horses in Mongolia with his son. And yes, I'm jealous. I'm Katie Rich, and this is the Prestige Junkie Podcast. Esther, thank you for joining us for this. I think I told you I was hoping that you would claim this combo of. I feel like a lot of them are New York-based indies. These are all studios or indie labels or however you want to call them that you work with a lot. You know a lot about not just these studios, but the people who run them.
Yeah, I definitely have. It is interesting. I think in New York, you have this sort of understanding of these studios, I think a little bit better maybe than out in LA, just because when you go to the Gothams or whatever, when you go to New York Film Festival, you are really sort of interacting with not just the publicists that we all interact with, but people who are part of these studios. Not Mubi, I will say, and not Lionsgate. Mubi,
we're mostly talking A24.
We're talking A24 and Bleecker, actually, is quite, have a quite sort of small, sort of very friendly team behind them who are honestly very lovely to work with. But Mubi also is an interesting case because it actually is a European-based company.
It's true.
So you aren't really understanding the big picture of what's going on upstairs, which I think is which we can talk about later because it's quite controversial.
Mubi's in a moment right now. We'll get to it.
But yeah, no, I definitely think A24. I think a lot of people in New York definitely feel okay, we were sort of there at the inception of this. We were sort of on the ground floor. I was a really young reporter at that time, but I still sort of feel like that.
Yeah, Chris, A24 is kind of the big dog in this group in here. Like I said, it's the one that's won Best Picture. Their slate this year is a little smaller than we've seen, but where do you see A24's status going into this fall season?
Oh, always a top contender. I feel if you think back to the 90s, they've replaced, I feel Miramax and this is the indie Oscar, winner, basically, right? Obviously, like you said, they won Best Picture with Moonlight and Everything Everywhere. I would say anytime A24 has a movie or something, you have to take it very seriously in the award space. They have, in terms of what we're talking about here, obviously, we had talked about Neon already, but of these studios, A24 gets the most visibility on their movies, and because they have had so much success, anything they release comes with that imprimatur of oh, it's an A24 movie, we're coming out in the fall, we do have to consider this, whether or not that even it gets them multiple nominations. And we're going to talk about, this year's slate for them is maybe a little lighter than they've had in the past and maybe more challenging in terms of the broad appeal of these movies, even though I am very excited for all of these movies. But I do think they are the top of this level of studios, even, probably, at least on level of Neon. Neon's obviously on a very great hot streak and has its 2 Best Picture winners as well. But I do think A24 is still the top, either one or 1A.
And I think the major difference is between A24 and Neon, if we're like looking at it, is like most of A24's contenders are sort of homegrown. Like they are developed within the studio. That's not always the case. I mean, like obviously look at last year in The Brutalist, which was, you know, their big Oscar play that they bought out of Venice. And so I don't think that's all. But Neon has this sort of streak of going to Cannes and buying up everything. So they'll have the Palme d'Or winner. Like they do have something like, you know, obviously Sentimental Value that was like because they had worked with Joachim Trier. But when you were on the ground in Cannes, you were like, damn, Neon bought that like too. Like they were really just like scooping everything up. Whereas like you look at the A24 slate and they are all very much like, these are movies that A24 has been with since like their inception. And
these are their people. Like they have like a homegrown talent team, like the Safdies or, you know, Mary Bronstein. Like they, you know, she hasn't made movies with them before, but I feel like they kind of really nurtured her talent as well. Ari Aster is obviously very loyal. Like there's they have a, you know, an MGM kind of stars in the heaven kind of thing going for them on the indie scale.
And Mary Bronstein, who is married to Ronald Bronstein, who co-wrote Uncut Gems and is really part of the Safdie like sort of universe. If you watch her debut film Yeast, like her mumblecore film, like the Josh and Benny are in it, like playing sort of like douchebags, like in the like in a campground.
Back in 2008. Holy moly.
If you want to see baby Josh and Benny, it's like pretty funny. So she does.
Greta
really
Gerwig's also in that. It's worth pointing out. Like everybody in 2008, it's like the primordial ooze from which everybody emerged.
It's a really great movie, actually. But like, yeah, it's very funny to like see now. So that's just like another point.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so we talked about, I guess, kind of vaguely what seems like their three big fall titles, but to rewind just a second, they had a bunch of movies that came out earlier this year, and when Chris and I caught up with some of the people there, they made sure to, you know, flag them for awards things like Warfare, the Alex Garland film on the list in there for crafts in some way. Materialists, I think, is a very interesting thing to consider when you get to like Golden Globes or Critics' Choice or anything that like wants to reward comedy. Sorry Baby, another interesting one when it comes to the, you know, first-time director, all those kinds of critic prizes you can get out there. And then the last one that's coming before the fall releases is Highest to Lowest, which I'm looking forward to seeing next week and is a Spike Lee movie. So therefore, I think is automatically considered for awards until it's then released in late August. And then everyone thinks, oh, wait, I don't actually know what to make of this.
Yeah.
But I haven't seen it, but Esther, I think you
I
have.
have seen it.
Are we taking it off the list?
Yeah, I mean, it is a fascinating movie. I think, you know, it is a sort of loose remake of a Kurosawa movie. I think the thing about Highest to Lowest is like when it starts cooking, it like starts cooking with like so much fucking gas that like you're sort of like, holy shit. But it feels a little uneven sort of on the way there. So, I don't really see it being like a giant Oscar play right now. I mean, like, I don't think, or probably an Oscar play at all. I don't think it's going to be an Oscar play at all. And it's also getting this sort of like somewhat shitty, like, because it's an Apple co-production, so it's getting sort of the shitty, like, here's 2 weeks in the theater or whatever. Don't quote me on, like, well, you are going to quote me because it's a podcast.
No,
but
that's about, I think that's about right.
I think it's like 3 weeks. It's like August 15th, and then it comes out September 5th on Apple.
Theatrical release, and then it's on Apple. So, like, it's getting sort of pushed off in there.
Getting Wolf's. No, Wolf's didn't even get theaters at all, right?
Meanwhile, I got an email that, like, this is off topic, but, like, F1 is coming back into IMAX. So, like, that's interesting. Speaking of Apple.
Is interesting. Chris, does that highest lowest strategy seem stupid to you, given that Denzel Washington is still extremely bankable, or is that to tell us that this movie might be an odd duck in general?
It's not. It is their strategy, so it is what it is. Like these Apple co-productions, seemingly that is it. I don't want to call it stupid, but I would personally think a Denzel Washington movie in movie theaters, especially in August when there's not really a lot out, people would just see it. But
isn't
in this
that when
case,
all the Equalizers came out, or were they a September movie?
Like they were usually Labor Day, I think. The third one definitely was. I don't know. It just seems like foolish to have a Spike Lee, even if like Esther's saying, like, I also have not seen it, but I'm excited to see it. Even if it's like mid, like you're still going to get people into the theater being like, hey, it's like Inside Man, come see this movie.
I think it's like, better than mid is what I'll say. Like, I think it is uneven, but I think it is its highs, like highest to lowest, its highs are super, super high. It also features, which is sort of like another tangential A24 thing, like it features an awesome performance from A$AP Rocky, who like shows up almost midway near the end of the movie and like sort of like almost acts Denzel like under the table. Like he is like so
also
good.
Someone who has fans who you would think would want to buy a ticket to see that.
And it's not, in its unevenness, it's not like, it is still like a thrill. Like it is a thriller. It has like chases through New York. It is sort of, so like, I do think it's the type of thing that could like have done well in theaters. A$AP also very good in If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You. It is like a really big year for A$AP, the actor, and he's very good in that.
Has he been in movies before this year?
I don't think so. I think this is like his film, like,
he really decided this is his year to pivot, and he did it very well.
Yeah.
So If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You is one of two A24 movies for the fall that we know are going to festivals. I think we have reason to believe If I Had Legs will be at Telluride, even though in theory that schedule is still not out. It's not going to Toronto, I think. Sorry, I don't have my festival
I think it is going to Toronto.
Pulled up. Okay, so it's going to be visible. It obviously premiered at Sundance earlier this year.
Yeah.
And The Smashing Machine is the other one. We'll get to that in a second. If I Had Legs, Esther, I think you've also seen this one. And I think I'm about to see it soon, hopefully.
It is one of my favorite movies of the year. I really love it. It is entirely stressful. It is, yeah.
Having this plus two Safdie movies just is like everyone needs to take blood pressure medication.
It definitely feels like it is part of the Safdie universe, but like from such like, in terms of, it has this quality that is sort of breakneck, but also surreal, but gritty, but it is also so entirely from a female perspective. It follows like Rose Byrne plays a mom of a young girl whose face we don't see throughout the movie, but who is suffering from an eating disorder and like hospitalized, sort of dealing. And she is, Byrne's character is left alone. Her husband is off elsewhere. She's also a therapist, which is sort of like a funny, ironic twist where her life is, where she is sort of helping other people. And it is just this sort of like odyssey through getting through her days, but in a way that is so intense. And Byrne is so amazing. And like we were chatting about, I just think she's one of the best actresses working today. We were chatting about Platonic, where she's so funny in it, the TV show. And she has had this sort of like, I think her profile really grew in the past, like 15 years or so doing like comedy on the big screen, starting with Bridesmaids and Neighbors movies. But like
her performance in Spy, one of the best of that year.
Incredible, Bulgarian Clowns. But you almost have forgotten how good a dramatic actress she is, and she is extraordinary in this movie. Like, I think it's a really cool movie. The interesting thing is that it does dovetail with a movie release, which was Die My Love, which is also a sort of like motherhood unraveling movie, but I am probably on the, like, I think this movie, I think If I Had Legs is the more successful of the two.
Has the legs.
Nice.
I was struck by the fact that it's on the New York Film Festival lineup, which is just, we don't often see the Sundance to New York Film Festival path, especially for a director who's, it's only her second film. So, I mean, Chris, did you see that as a real, like, sign of how strongly A24 feels about this?
I did. I'm like, and I think having it, if we're assuming let's just say it's probably a Telluride based on like all the things that we're seeing. I'll be curious to see how it plays. I mean, New York, I feel like makes sense because like Uncut Gems played New York, like it's like a New York film, probably even like I think it takes place in Montauk. So I'm like, it does feel like the New York vibe. I do think that's notable, but I think seeing it at Telluride would be interesting based on that crowd. I guess I haven't seen this movie, but I'm just like we've seen. I don't know if you guys know this. The Academy doesn't really love women, period. Just a period on that, and movies about moms, period. Mm-hmm. So I'm like concerned that like to me it feels like yes, like based on the reviews and like just Esther here, like Rose Byrne ascendant. People love Rose Byrne. Like get her an Oscar nomination, right? And she's gonna like get like the all kinds of like awards throughout, whatever, like at Telluride maybe, or at Toronto, they'll come up with more awards at more regional film festivals to give her, and she'll like push through, and
Rose
she'll be a
Byrne will go to
contender.
every rich enclave in America to shake
Gotham
hands
Awards,
with voters.
right? Like some award at the Gotham Awards, maybe a competitive award as well. Like all these different things will be in Rose Byrne's future, and people will really respond to her. And Best Actress as a field this year is a little light compared to like previous years. So all those things to me are like, yes, Rose Byrne's getting an Oscar nomination, but then I'm like, the movie, if it's like Uncut Gems meets Night Bitch, which is kind of what the trailer is presenting, I'm like, these movies were repellent.
Yeah, I don't think I would guess that it is a Rose play. I would guess. Also, I will say, incredible supporting performance, not just from A$AP Rocky, but from Conan O'Brien.
He's so good in the trailer. I was stunned by that.
That is just a taste. Like, he plays her therapist colleague who she like goes on his couch and like spills his guts and is sort of like passively like, please stop doing this to me. And he has this monologue where I was like, damn. And it is really his first like acting role, and he's like incredible in it. I will say, to Chris's point, there are three of our Best Actress contenders are playing mothers enduring trauma, like like mothers.
We got Rose Byrne, we got Jennifer Lawrence, we'll get to her in a minute.
And Jessie Buckley.
Oh, of course. Yep, in Hamnet.
Yep. So like that is the theme of, and I'm pretty sure all three of those people are getting Oscar nominations. So like that is like the theme of the year.
This is how Cynthia Erivo wins. You gotta just like follow your alternate path and play a witch.
I was gonna say one thing. I think like if all three of those are in play, and certainly those are three of the top Best Actress contenders, I think one of the things that maybe if I had legs to kick you would have going for it for Rose Byrne is, again, haven't seen these, but just based, it seems that Die My Love is at the farthest end of the spectrum of movies that people are going to really
they're gonna
have
hate.
a strong...
People are going to hate it.
So I'm like, if I had legs like could kick you, people may see that and be like, hey, you know what? I liked it a lot more than Die My Love. Right? Yeah. Like, oh, this one I could handle because I thought that one was so bad. And then maybe that also helps in like the narrative, depending on when people see what first. Or maybe they'll be like, I didn't love If I Had Legs, now I do because I saw Die My Love.
Though I do think, and I'm like honestly probably working through a piece that I will eventually pitch out loud here, but I do think an interesting thing is that in some ways, If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You is more accessible than Die My Love, but I think the character is probably going to be labeled more unlikable in certain ways. In Die My Love, she plays like a new mother who is sort of like just dealing with this massive postpartum incident. In If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You, she is dealing with a sort of tween-age daughter who is going through like a health trauma. So like there is this element. So I think, and avoid, you see this in the trailer, she's like avoiding the doctor's appointments, the therapy sessions at the like place where her daughter is getting treatment. So
she's being more of like a classic bad mom.
Yeah, I think so. I think there is like an element of harshness to the character, which I think is really interesting, that I think Die My Love almost doesn't have, because it is a baby that she is dealing with, and she is dealing with this sort of like, you don't understand the personality of the child at all, So I think that's like an interesting thing. And like I'll probably pitch this, so like no one steal it.
All right. Okay. Nobody steal Esther's idea. Okay. To move on to Smashing Machine, which is the other A24 movie that we know is heading to festivals. It's going to have its world premiere in Venice. It's going to go to Toronto. It's not in a New York lineup, right? I thought I had my list up to date. It's not. Okay, so I don't think any of us have seen it, although I've heard tell of people who have seen it. It's obviously The Rock's big Best Actor contender. It's the first test of the Safdies on their own, because Josh's movie will be out later. It has, like, it feels reductive to say it has Iron Claw vibes, but like it is from the same studio. It is about a, wrestling sport. Like it does feel in the same vein. And the trailer just gives off this real classic sports movie vibe to it, like down to Emily Blunt looking like she's like one of the sisters in The Fighter. That's the vibe I'm getting. But I do think the Venice-Toronto combo is interesting for that one, because it seems to suggest it's got some like high-class international appeal, but also can play for the masses in Toronto, which I think is a pretty powerful position to be in.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I get the sense this is like just entirely vibes alone, but I get the sense the trailer might be like slightly misleading. I mean, like it's still a Benny Safdie movie, like, you know.
The Iron Claw trailer also was misleading.
The Iron Claw trailer was also misleading when it's like, oh, that's the most like depressing movie ever made. You know, I love the Iron Claw, but that was also like, okay, something is off. This is a Sean Durkin movie. Like, it's not going to be like what we're, sort of like inspirational sports story. But I mean, it is. The vibes around The Rock is like really interesting. I will say, like, my dad keeps like whenever like my parents go to the movies a lot, and my dad has multiple times to be like, yeah, we saw the trailer for The Smashing Machine again. The Rock was unrecognizable to me, which I'm like, sort of like, Dad, he looks like The Rock. But like,
I don't know though. If you see like a still image of just his face without his like enormous body attached to it, like he does look really different.
Yeah. So my dad is like, I do think there's already this sort of like, holy shit, The Rock is transforming vibe to it. Like, if you just go off my dad.
I mean, you're especially your dad having worked in the industry. I do think of your parents as being very helpful focus group for Academy voters.
Yeah, they are.
I think there's a lot of overlap there.
Yeah, they are. I think they're a little like, I credit to my parents. Like, I think their tastes are a little cooler than your like average Academy voter. Like, I don't think they're your baseline. Like, they loved Eddington.
I skipped over Eddington entirely, talking about A24 slate. Yeah. Sorry. Eddington.
I love Eddington, pro Eddington, but Oscars.
I mean, Chris, I feel like Smashing Machine, for now, we can talk about whether or not A24 is going to make some festival pickups. It feels like their most obvious contender right now.
I think so. I mean, I think you have, not to comp the movie to this, and your mileage may vary, but I'm like, what if it's like Joker? Like, I'm sure that's their like pie in the sky.
Venice?
Or it's, well, it could, or like, like it has this powerful lead performance from an actor who is like doing something unexpected or whatever, right? And then it like kind of, I'm sure that's like the A24 maybe hope. I think it looks great. I think like you could see, we've seen acting with makeup. So I'm like, is it best actor, makeup, best supporting actress, best picture kind of swing? Mm-hmm. The other thing I would say in terms of like the Safdies alone, this is based solely on just Benny's acting profile. I'm like, Benny is clearly, of those two guys, it seems to me, not knowing them at all, seems the more mainstream guy. And so even if
he's the one who's in Happy Gilmore too, you
right? He's doing like a stupid bit in Happy Gilmore too, and he's really funny, right? And I'm like, so like even if like it's a little stranger than the trailer is letting on, I do think it's probably, like you're saying to your point, Katey, like for the masses if it's going to TIFF too. So I do think it's got a pretty strong narrative, and I guess we'll see. Like again, like is there like The Rock is obviously one of the biggest stars of like the last decade or so, right? Like in terms of like his visibility at the very least. Is there a push to like make him an Oscar nominee? I have no idea, but I do think like on paper, he does check off a lot of boxes. So.
Yeah. This year's Best Actor race, like Clooney, The Rock, we assume Leo might be in there. Chalamet we'll get to in a minute. Like it's like enormous movie stars in the Best Actor race. It's kind of wild.
That's fun.
It is fun.
It's fun.
We want more movie stars. Yeah.
Michael B. Jordan, maybe?
That's right. Michael B. Jordan, massive movie star too. There you go. That's 5. That's it. Sorry to
Jesse Plemons.
Sorry to Jesse Plemons. I don't know. We're still rooting for Jesse Plemons. We talked about Focus before. Yeah. We're rooting for Jesse Plemons also. Okay, so Marty Supreme is the Chalamet movie that is scheduled for Christmas. It seems to not be finished at this point, based on it's not going to any festivals unless there's a huge surprise at Telluride, which would be very fun, and I'd be very jealous. But I mean, we're just going to have to save a spot for it until otherwise noted, right?
Yeah. It does feel like, I mean, I do think that's like now a play, which is like hold
Chalamet as until as late as possible.
Well, yeah. I mean, I guess like that, it almost worked for him last year. I do think just based on vibes of like what we're getting, I do think it is going to be the movie that feels more like quote unquote Safdie probably. Just based on like our tiny photos of like Chalamet like running around New York City. But yeah, I'm like super excited for it. And I do think it's
Gwyneth. I need the Gwyneth moment.
Oh my God, Gwyneth supporting actress campaign. Let's go. Let's bring her back.
When was her last nomination? Chris, do you know this off the top of your head?
Not off the top of my head.
She got nominations after Shakespeare in Love, but like maybe only one?
No, that's the only one she got.
That's the only one she's ever
won, and that's it.
Yeah.
How?
Let's bring her back.
Yeah, we gotta fix this.
Gwenny.
So do you guys think that there's a pickup coming from them? It's like a Brutalist style pickup?
So the big Brutalist pickup is, Chris was going to say this, it's The Testament of Anne Lee, which is like Mona Fastvold's movie, who co-wrote The Brutalist with her husband, Brady Corbet. And Brady co-wrote this. It's a musical starring Amanda Seyfried, who like maybe she'll be in the conversation for Best Actress. It's a musical about the Shakers. It sounds wild and cool. And I loved Mona's previous film, The World to Come, which got a really sort of shitty COVID drop. So, you know, they could get back in the Brady and Mona business, I think, is the big like question mark.
Yeah. It seems like a pretty natural fit, and it's Anne Lee is at Venice, is where it's world premiering.
Yeah, and then it's going to it's going to TIFF.
Yeah, I like that. So there's Brady and Mona, and then there's Greg Quito and Clint Bentley with Train Dreams, who switched roles. Also, they like write and direct things, and they just like trade off. I find that very charming.
Yeah.
I want more people to do that. Chris, how high are you on The Testament of Anne Lee?
I'm pretty high, and I think Amanda it could be like a legitimate Oscar contender. And I feel like, again, another person we're waiting for, like, like, hey, people really like her in the industry, and then like will want to embrace her as a performer. I also think like it's a perfect fit. Like we're saying, the only, no disrespect to these other movies, like the only Best Actress contender they seem to have right now is Rose Byrne. So they have room to like have another Best Actress contender to contend and campaign. And yeah, I could definitely see, like, last year they picked up, like you said, The Brutalist. They picked up Queer, right, at Venice too, I think. Yep. So, or maybe just after. So they definitely have room, and like it would make so much sense for them to get Anne Lee. But whether they do or not, I guess it depends also on like how they see the rest of the year playing out for them, and we'll see. But I would put them high on the list of who I expect to get that movie.
I mean, it is interesting too, because it's like obviously Brady and Mona do have. I'm pretty sure Vox Lux was a Neon release.
Feels right. Yeah, hang on. I can look that up.
So, like, Brady and Mona are not, like, completely only one studio. They make their movies, like, totally independently. So, like, then this sort of, like, they get a distributor sort of later. But Neon does feel, like, totally full. So.
Yeah.
So, like, I think, Anne Lee being sort of I feel like maybe one of the only major sort of like movies hitting the big fall fest that don't have a distributor, right? Like,
yeah. I mean, there's a lot at Toronto that's kind of hard to know.
Right.
Like, is the Soderbergh movie going to be a thing? Like, a bunch of actors are directing movies. Who knows? But yes.
I would also say, like, with Brady, at least with The Brutalist, I think Neon, I remember I read that, like, Tom Quinn said, like, Neon was in on The Brutalist, and Brady went with A24 because of, like, of the way they rolled it out in terms of, like, making sure it got, like, the 70 millimeter release.
Yeah.
And, like, Neon was kind of like, maybe we could make sure we have enough time to do that or whatever. So I feel like if Brady had a great experience with A24, Mona probably did as well, and then maybe they
turning
would
a
bring
movie around from premiering at a fall festival to an Oscar campaign is not easy.
No.
Like, you don't see it every single year for a reason. And, A24 went all in on The Brutalist, and I think that to some extent at the expense of something like Sing Sing or even Baby Girl, which might have been a tougher sell at the Academy anyway. So, they often will have a handful of contenders, but The Brutalist was the only one that really like hit big last year. So maybe focusing a little bit more is a smarter move.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Mubi. We talked about Die My Love a little bit. I mean, we should say we're recording this a little bit ahead of when it's coming out. So it's unclear what else will develop with the filmmaker pushback against Mubi and the way that they're one of their key investors is also a major investor in the Israeli military. I don't have a huge grasp on what the potential fallout for that might be, but it does seem like Mubi is still an upstart. They're not a huge company. It does seem like there's like potential downside to this hugely for them and less so for the billionaire who's funding them, which is always the case. How do you guys want to make any predictions on how this might continue to play out, or maybe by the time this airs, this has gotten resolved somehow?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know how it's going to play out. I think like the big story of Mubi is the sort of shocking, like, when we were at Cannes, Variety had that, I'm pretty sure it was Variety had a movie cover that was about, like, Mubi was, like, sort of coming out of the gate swinging. It had this huge influx of cash. I'm not sure the timing of the Sequoia investment, but the news of it came out after Cannes. But it was going on this buying spree. At Cannes, we didn't know about the Sequoia investment, which inevitably once it became public was going to be a controversy. So Mubi comes in and Mubi and Neon are sort of decking it out for like big movies and big players. And then sort of couple months later, now they're receiving all this pushback from filmmakers who have worked with them in the past and filmmakers who are currently working with them, on film. So it will be interesting to see what happens, because it hurts the brand Mubi more than it hurt. And the filmmakers sort of who have already sort of before knowledge of this sort of tied themselves to that than it does, obviously, like any of the billionaires involved, any of the really rich people involved.
Yeah, I mean, Alex Russell, the director of Lurker, which is coming out from Mubi in a couple of weeks, signed the open letter kind of asking them to divest themselves from these people. And his movie is still coming out. Like, he needs the studio support to get his movie out there. So, he's standing by his principles in a way that I think is really admirable. But it's also unclear how any of this will hurt the Sequoia Capital's guy who's, on a tweeting spree, as opposed to the people who are trying to support independent film, which is, independent film has had to take money from all kinds of people forever. Like, if your dad's rich friend who may or may not have gotten his money, probably funded movies in the 50s. Yeah. And not to diminish what Sequoia Capital is doing or the importance of all of this, but it does feel like a really tough spot to try to draw a line for how your independent film world is getting funded, because it's never going to be perfect.
Yeah. I mean, I think the question will be what, it's not like the public is obviously for Mubi a smaller public, but it is the deeper film fans who are also probably more likely than anyone else to pay attention to this and to be angry about it. So I think it hurt. So it will be interesting to see how that too affects the films as they sort of come into both the fall festivals and the release.
Yeah, that's a really good point. A24 still has the niche thing, but they have this kind of wide level. If you can name a studio, an indie studio, you'll name A24. Yeah. And Mubi is coming for that crown in a lot of ways. Their tote bag was all over TIFF last year. I remember seeing it, but they still have just a niche devoted audience that you're exactly right that cares about this stuff more than anyone knows who's a shareholder in Warner Brothers or will make a big deal about it. So is Sequoia Capital the reason they could overpay so wildly for Die My Love? Is that when this all started?
I am not totally sure. I don't want to say anything because I think that because we didn't know about that. And I'm not sure when the Sequoia Capital investment came in. I know they had a lot of money going into.
But they did overpay for Die My Love.
They did overpay for Die My Love. That is very clear.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about Die My Love a little while ago. I don't want to I haven't seen it yet. Esther, you're the only one of us who's seen it, but it does feel an interesting way for Mubi to be trying to make a big play. It's the year after The Substance. They got so far with that movie that I don't think anybody necessarily expected. They have every reason to be high on what they can do with something. But Die My Love feels like a really tricky one to try to springboard off The Substance.
Look, compared to The Substance, The Substance had this sort of demi-narrative that was surprising. Here they have an incredible, I think Jennifer Lawrence is amazing in this movie. You watch it and you're like, damn, this is why she is considered one of our best actresses. And we haven't really seen this from her in a while. And I think it's really and it's really incredible. The Substance was a fun movie. Die My Love is not a fun movie. It's not a fun movie. It is a Lynn Ramsey movie. It is tougher than even some of her work We Need to Talk About Kevin, I think, in a way, in terms of sort of because it's so internal and sort of psychologically intense. I think that they saw this performance and they were let's do this best actress run. We came so close to it. I think that's where that is. So yeah, I think that Chris, is the choice.
I'm a little not, again, they've done a lot of great work, but I'm definitely softer on them because I think The Substance is one of one. And it was incredible, lightning bolt movie that struck, you had the demi narrative. People also, like Esther saying, it's fun. And even though it's so gross and definitely not something an Academy member would typically I do think there was a novelty to it that people responded to. And Die My Love, again, having not seen it, but just reading the reviews, if it's a Lynn Ramsey, all you need, it's a Lynn Ramsey. It's not that. And so I think, it's going to be a challenge to get that going. And I just think it's very curious to see like where it goes. Like we said, like it's not at like any of these festivals yet. I guess it could go to Telluride, but I mean, if I'm worried about
baffled by that. Like I don't really get it. It's not obviously it's not an obvious TIFF movie, but like every Cannes movie goes to TIFF. I don't understand.
Usually or like Telluride, but I'm like, I think if they brought it to Telluride, it would be great. Jennifer Lawrence would probably be there and people would really respond to that. But I mean, just knowing that crowd, that would be not the greatest experience for that crowd.
Yeah. Did The Substance play Telluride last year?
No, I don't think it did.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Nora did, and it was great. You know, people like the Nora.
Nora is a lot
famously.
Yeah.
Like Saltburn at Telluride, everyone was like, "Oh, that was a mistake. That movie is not right for it." And it seems like Die My Love, well, probably very different from Saltburn, might be a similar, like not your crowd kind of thing.
And so, like, we'll see how it does. I mean, like, I think, like Esther's saying, if it has this transformative Jennifer Lawrence performance that everybody loves Jennifer Lawrence, and everybody loves Jennifer Lawrence, and she's a producer on the movie, so she's going to be out there like in full force for this movie, and that could get it enough to get it visible and seen, and maybe we're going to say, oh, this $25 million was worth it because she got an Oscar nomination in the end. But it does seem like a much bigger boulder to push up the hill than The Substance even though that might sound ridiculous because The Substance ends with a monster spraying blood all over the crowd.
We should probably talk less about the $25 million too. I'm thinking about myself in the spring being like, who cares how much Sinners cost? It doesn't matter. You're not a shareholder. You shouldn't think about it. So I feel like the same rules should apply to these festival pickups, 100%. Even if it feels a little bit different.
I will say, I think there's something slightly, just like as a point, I think there's something slightly different about like a studio investing money in a filmmaker and a festival pickup. There's just like something different about that to me, you know?
Sure. Well, it's all kind of like play money. Like, why not pay $10 million?
Exactly. It feels a little bit different than like, hey, Ryan Coogler wants this amount of money to like make his vision. Let's give it to him and invest in that, when it's like, this has already been made. We're investing in the idea that this can get us something, which I think is like the sort of difference in between, and why like people throwing around ridiculous amounts of money feels a little bit like almost like that we can talk about it because they're like asking, because they're sort of asking for it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, the other Mubi release that I am kind of puzzled by is The History of Sound, which I think they brought to Cannes.
Yeah, they already had
not
that.
in competition. They already had it. It's coming out in mid-September, so, you know, not a date that says they have a ton of awards hosts for it. I think the Cannes response backs that up, but I don't understand why it's not in Toronto. That just feels like exactly
it feels
the
like
movie
such a Toronto movie, but having seen it, I mean, it's just a really like you have these it's Josh O'Connor and Paul Mescal, like our two boys in a romance, but it is I found it like pretty sloggy and pretty sort of staid. It does get you in the end. It is a beautiful soundtrack, but like it just doesn't really you know, I think Josh O'Connor's performance leaves halfway through the movie and the movie sort of like dies without it.
Well, and Josh O'Connor has Wake Up Dead Man, obviously. That's also going to be in Toronto.
He also has The Mastermind, which is a movie.
He also has The Mastermind and his Sundance movie that's also coming out.
Rebuilding, which is Bleecker.
Yeah, Rebuilding is also coming out.
I loved Rebuilding. I think that's a lovely, lovely movie. And he is great in The Mastermind. I love The Mastermind. It's a Kelly Reichardt movie, you know.
Yeah, I'm seeing it soon. I'm very excited.
I love it.
It was also at Cannes. Also got like a quieter. It was in competition at Cannes.
Yeah, it got sort of screwed by it premiered at the very, very end of the festival, so it sort of got screwed a little bit by the scheduling, you know. But it's great. It's like very Kelly. It's very much Josh O'Connor.
Which means that it will get no Oscar nominations because Kelly Reichardt never gets what she deserves.
But it's Josh
from
O'Connor
the
in like
Oscars.
full dirtbag mode. You know.
Now you're speaking my language.
Like he is just a piece of shit in this movie. And it's great.
Is the problem with The History of Sound that he's not a dirtbag? Is there just
no? He's great in the History
type?
of Sound. I think he's just like, the movie is just paced really strangely and slowly, and it doesn't really have the juice you want from it.
Yeah. Chris, what do you like? I mean, in terms of movie strategy in general, like, does it just seem like they're all in on Die My Love? And even though it's not going to festivals, do we think there's a pickup coming? Like, what's the plan here?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's what we were going to say.
There is one other film that they have that is just like an international play, but it was at Cannes, and it's The Sound of Falling, which is Masha Zielinski's
right.
Sort of sprawling a story of these German women who have lived in the same house over the years that jumps back and forth in time. It is like an incredible, I think, feat of filmmaking, and it's so wonderful. I don't think it's going to make that like leap to Best Picture nom, but I do think it is a very strong international play. I don't think it's going to win international because we have sentimental value, and you know.
Does it have a date for this year? Do we know it's coming out?
I'm pretty sure they're going to release it this year.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure.
It's at the New York Film Festival lineup.
Yeah,
so
and it's a TIFF,
see
too.
see it
I think it'll probably be the German entry, so barring something crazy.
So yeah, Chris, do you think there's a pickup coming, or is this what we got?
I don't think so. I think this is probably what we got, though. I guess obviously they could pick up like Ann Lee or whatever we were talking about. I mean, there's not a lot of other major titles that I think have the juice this year, really. Like last year we had like so many. Had Maria, Queer, Brutalist. We knew these movies were not had no distribution. It was like, oh man, this is going to be great when they get kind of like slotted in. This year, not as many. So I don't think.
Maria,
I think this is probably
what a blast.
Remember that was like a big thing.
That was
when Netflix
last
picked it
year.
Up.
Wow.
Yes, and when I remember at Telluride they picked it up, and I remember seeing one of our friends from Netflix at Telluride and being like, he was like, "Get Angelina in your Best Actress lineup right away," and I was like, "Okay," and then I saw it and I was like, "Nope, sorry, not gonna work."
And history
proved me right. But I probably did have her in at some point anyway. But no, I think this is probably it. I would say like. Yeah, like on paper, going into Cannes, like this felt like after the Substance like movie was going to be ascendant.
Yeah.
And like Esther saying, like History of Sound on paper again, like Oliver Hermanos, right? Olivia Hermanos, Living fame. So like that was a nice little movie, and people enjoyed it and got Bill Nye in the Oscar race. So I was like, History of Sound should be a big deal. Obviously, Die My Love felt like a big deal, and then those both premiered at Cannes. I guess you could did like. Die My Love feels like it always should premiere at Cannes, just based on like Lynn Ramsey's history. But would History of Sound played better if they held it for Telluride and premiered it there or something else, and then like kind of
it definitely felt like
I don't
more
know.
of a TIFF Telluride style movie than a Cannes movie.
And so like then now it's already kind of like. Even if it's good, I know I think it's going to be at Telluride because Living was at Telluride, so I wouldn't be surprised if like this showed up there before it went to release on early September. But the date is so tough. Like you're saying, like September 12th is during TIFF, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I've seen plenty of movies at TIFF that were opening the next week. Like it is not unheard of.
It's just tough, and I don't know. So I feel like that one they'll try to bring it back, but I don't know if it's going to work. And then we'll just see what Die My Love, and hopefully they'll go all in on Jennifer Lawrence, I guess.
Yeah. Okay, let's go through our other indies briefly. I put Lionsgate in here, even though it's not, I don't know, it feels like an odd duck kind of no matter where. Lionsgate is its own special thing, but it has two totally fascinating potential contenders this year. Kiss of the Spider Woman premiered at Sundance, which was weird, and it is on no festival. It's not in Toronto or any other fall festivals, which is also weird. It feels like it should be going to Toronto. I know that there are other Oscar pundits out there who are very high on Jennifer Lopez as a supporting actress contender. I cannot figure out how that path is going to emerge, and I wonder if you guys see something. I haven't seen this movie. Like, I would love for it to be good. Movie. Okay, all right, Esther, be the champion. How's this going to happen?
Movie. I don't know. I don't know who's right now. It doesn't really feel like we have strong supporting actress contenders. So I do think like, hey, but it's not like the Oscars have been like, Hustlers, Robbed, that I do think
incredibly.
I mean,
robbed.
I think
I don't know if we can handle a J-Lo and a Gwyneth comeback narrative in one season.
So
like
incredible.
Oh my god, that would be so good.
I think Jennifer. This is like a perfect use of like the Jennifer Lopez star like power because she is playing a movie star in the story that is being told. So she's not even playing sort of like a real person, like ever. She is playing an actress who is playing a thing, but she gets to sing, she gets to dance. She is like incredibly, incredible to look at. And maybe that's actually what they need to sort of like push her over the edge, just something that is like totally like using her star power as opposed to something like Hustlers, which is a little bit more like, hey, she's like sort of gritty and like, not part of this, So I don't know. The other thing is like the actor that really, really stands out in this movie is, I'm going to butcher the pronunciation of their name, but it's Tonatuya. They are a non-binary actor who this is their they've been in other stuff, but this is like a total breakout role. Playing,
it's the part that won William Hurt an Oscar,
it is the William
in the
Hurt
movie
role,
version of Kiss the Spider-Woman.
It is the William Hurt role, and it is like, they are incredible. They are the person you come out of the movie being like, wow. So
yeah.
I don't know how.
I always want Diego Luna to get what he deserves after getting rudely snubbed for Andor at the Emmys, but it seems like, I mean, that role is the straight man role. It's just not.
That is just like, exactly. So I don't know. We'll see if they like butcher it and run Tonatiuh as supporting. Maybe then you get but I don't think that's a supporting role. So who knows?
The positives for this movie, again, haven't seen it, which I'm excited to see it. They're already doing screenings of it, so they're trying to get it out in front. Like, I've gotten emails about it, so I know they've been screening it this summer and trying to get it out in front of people before the festivals. The other thing is, I remember a publicist who told me around the time Unstoppable came out last year, which I loved, Unstoppable. I don't know if you remember this movie, a Prime movie.
I was literally thinking of the Chris Pine train movie with.
No, it's a different movie named Unstoppable. This is the wrestling drama that Jennifer Lopez
which
did.
I saw, yeah.
Love the movie. Jennifer Lopez is really good in it. And I remember somebody saying, like, Jennifer really was, like, pushing for, like, what if we did a camp? Like, she was, like, she wants this.
Yeah.
She really wants this recognition. She made Marry Me basically just because she got snubbed for Hustlers, right? Like, Marry Me is all about getting snubbed for an award, honestly. So I was like, I do think she really wants it. I don't know if the Academy cares about Jennifer Lopez, but I know no one will probably this season work harder than trying to get themselves in the conversation than Jennifer Lopez. So if the movie's
a reason
good, like, I don't know, I mean, why not? Like, she could be in, and maybe she plays herself up as the underdog because she's been snubbed so many times.
That's true.
And like, hey, like, what about me?
She's good at that. The other Lionsgate film that I had to flag because it's at Toronto is Good Fortune, the Aziz Ansari comedy. It's his directorial debut. It's got Keanu Reeves in it and Seth Rogen and Keke Palmer, which is a group of people I absolutely want to see do basically anything. I think it's reasonable to assume this is a straightforward comedy and not an awards contender, but I just want to see it. It seems good. I hope it's good. Great.
I agree.
We all agree.
I don't think I'm allowed to say anything. Yeah.
All right. Esther's suddenly nodding.
Tell us later, Esther.
The fact
Tell us
that
later, Esther.
Alex Winter will be at TIFF with he directed a movie, so he and Keanu will both be in Toronto, just putting that out there. And then we're wrapping up with Bleecker Street. They had a hard truce last year. I thought, did a pretty great job trying to push that movie. And even though it did not get Marianne Jean-Baptiste the nomination she richly deserved, they're releasing Spinal Tap 2. I think that can just be what it is. But we mentioned Rebuilding earlier. That's the only movie they've got now. Something could change. There could be another movie in the offing. But, do we feel like they built any momentum off of Hard Truce and can push forward more this year?
I think they've been doing a great job. I don't think any of their movies this year feel like, they don't have a Marianne Jean-Baptiste performance. But I do think that Josh O'Connor's performance in Rebuilding is the kind of thing that could show up like in the Gothams, for instance, or the Indie Spirits. Like, I think he's so good in that movie, but like, it's not gonna.
And I think for them, that's the victory, right? Like, I mean, this is not going to be it's not going to get Josh O'Connor an Oscar nomination, but if they can get a Gotham nomination for him, which seems likely, and like you said, Indie Spirits or whatever, like, then that's a win, and that's a good job out of them. They do a great job. It's just the movies they have are also so small. Yeah. It's sometimes hard to compete against like the flashy, like A24 neon movies that we're talking about. I
mean, the Josh O'Connor Oscar nomination is wildly overdue at this point. Yeah. So, whenever his After Sun comes along and makes that possible, I guess it needs to be released by A24 to make that happen. But yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of movies coming to Toronto with stars and directors attached to them that like, I always want to keep the hope alive that something can pop out of there because that sense of, you don't want to have the full fall lineup in your head. You want to be able to see a surprise or two coming out there. Well, guys, do we feel more optimistic about what we've got ahead of us now that we've gone through it? I realized that we didn't even talk about Mother Mary, the A24 movie that I think is not going to come out this year as much as I want it to, but just flagging it in case it does come over the parapet. The David Lowery movie.
They also have Pillion, which was at Cannes, which rules. It is the Alexander Skarsgård biker dom movie, and
so many adjectives in that sentence.
It is awesome, and it is like the BDSM surprisingly sweet rom-com of the year.
Sounds good to me. Baby Girl vibes continue to 2025.
More explicit. It's way more explicit than Baby Girl.
Okay.
I had another A24 one that we briefly talked about, I think, but not. I want to just flag Sorry Baby, which I didn't even love personally, but people really love it. And the only reason I'm bringing it up is because last year A24 had Sing Sing, which I think we talked about how like they did not get that over the line, and it came out in the summer, kind of like dissipated, never really built momentum, and it held it for like streaming and on demand for so long, kind of bringing it back theatrical. It didn't work. Sorry Baby's already available at home for like people to watch. I've seen like a huge uptick, at least in my social media, of people sharing memes from it and talking about how emotional they were. I wonder if that is going to continue to hold that momentum, and then Ava Victor gets in, like a first-time filmmaker, obviously, but maybe they even get in the screenplay conversation, like for original screenplay.
That's
and I
totally
think A24, like they try to, is the past lives playbook, and they get it in for picture even. I don't know. I guess it depends on the rest of the year, but I would not count it out just yet. I think it's not going to be like Sing Sing was, where it kind of gets forgotten about.
Yeah.
That's my...
And it does seem like it could be the past lives playbook more than even Materialist, which is a Sling Song movie. But, you know, it made money. It had its kind of success as a rom-com. Like, I think there's absolutely a reason everyone should get a Golden Globe nomination for that movie. But that I would love that. No, it does on the Golden Globes. But we'll see how that shakes out. I have to wrap this up because I got to go. So, Esther,
thank you
so much for joining us for this. This is so fun, and your expertise is invaluable. And thank you to your dog Daisy for showing up.
She had a lot of cameos. Sorry for making everyone look at Daisy's butt.
It was great.
No, that's what the people tune into video versions of this for.
Good.
We'll be right back in a moment with my conversation with Walton Goggins. For your consideration, sponsors include HBO Max presenting The Last of Us, nominated for 17 Emmys, including Outstanding Drama Series. In 2003, a parasitic fungal infection ravaged the planet, turning people into violent creatures known as the Infected. 20 years later, Joel, played by Pedro Pascal, is hired to smuggle 14-year-old Ellie, played by Bella Ramsey, to the rebel Fireflies. Season 2 picks up 5 years later as Joel and Ellie's past resurfaces, drawing them into conflict with each other and a world even more dangerous than the one they left behind. Don't miss the series The Hollywood Reporter calls thrilling and addictive, now streaming on HBO Max. Now let's hear my conversation with Walton Goggins. He is Emmy nominated this year for his performance on the third season of The White Lotus. I spoke with him on this podcast last year when he was nominated for Fallout, and I asked him then about the incredible work ethic that had gotten him to this point where he was filming Fallout, The White Lotus, and The Righteous Gemstones basically back to back. He's a little less slammed these days. He just took a vacation with his Righteous Gemstones collaborator, Danny McBride, he tells me. And we talked a bit about the vacation he's about to take, riding horses in far western Mongolia for 2 weeks with his son. Sounds amazing. But he's still got that same intense work ethic, and he's earned it from more than 30 years in this business and this kind of seemingly unending wanderlust. It's not just to travel, which he's done a lot, but really to work in all of these different places, which I think is partly how he wound up on the Thailand set of The White Lotus. He's been really open about the challenges he faced on that set. He was there for months. He was playing this really tormented internal character of Rick Hackett, and we talk about what that was like. But he also tells me about how much it meant when, after months of that, his friend Sam Rockwell showed up on set. They shared this instantly iconic scene in episode 5. You probably remember it. And how he was so excited to see his old friend that he ran to his trailer and gave him a huge hug. I really have a perfect mental image of it. Walton Goggins is a really fascinating person to talk to. He is one of the only people I've ever interviewed who asked me about my own work during our conversation. And we got into so many things about The White Lotus and his career and why he swears he has never experienced envy, even when a lot of his friends have become really, really successful. You can hear it all in my conversation with the one and only Walton Goggins. So to rewind a bit, we talked last summer when you were promoting Fallout. You had just, I guess, filmed The White Lotus. You were on the set of Righteous Gemstones. And I kind of asked you about your work ethic, which is something I've heard you talk about before, about, you know, growing up with your mom, seeing how hard your mom worked, kind of carrying that with you. But the thing that we didn't get into then, and I was thinking about with The White Lotus, is that attitude about money and about being in a place and being on this show that's, you know, about people who have so much money that they're idle and that they've kind of lost track of that, and really immersing yourself in that level of wealth. And I wondered how you thought about that part of going into White Lotus. This season wasn't about money in the same way that some previous ones have been, but it's still like kind of all there in the atmosphere. So what was grappling with that part of it like for you going into making the show?
Well, this is pretty easy to answer because Rick Hatchett doesn't have a lot of money, so he doesn't move through the world the way that the Ratliffs move through the world, or a number of the other guests that are there. I mean, obviously, Natasha Rothwell's character is has limited kind of resources, but Rick Hatchett moves through the world in a very, very, very specific way. He has means, and those means aren't infinite. They're finite in number, and that is something that I related to, out of the gate more than anything else, really, because I understand moving through the world and that capacity, and that's how I've moved through the world my whole life. I've met a number of people like him over the course of my travels, and it's something that was infinitely relatable to me, and something that spoke, it was so salient to me, the way in which Rick has a connection to the world around him. There isn't this barrier of money that prevents one from having an authentic experience. And it also kind of fed into his disdain for this particular suburban, or wealthy kind of suburban ethos that the other people kind of inhabited. He doesn't
for the comfort, like the comfort of the resorts. Kind of didn't
he's not
seem
there
to
for that.
To him.
A comfortable resort for him would be, a super cool palapa that's about $200 a night. Like that. That's just how they move through the world, right? Anybody can get a great cocktail. You just don't have to pay $30 for it.
Yeah. Well, you were talking about your sense of wanderlust. Like, do you relate to that sense of like, I'm a visitor here. I'm going to travel through. I'm not going to, you have your roots, you have your home, but it does seem like you embrace the sense of travel, that you have an itch to get out and about and travel lightly when you get the chance.
Yeah, I think like a lot of actors who've been around for a while, and it's not just actors. I mean, obviously directors, but let's just talk about crews, and people in the crew. I've lived a life on the road. I really don't know anything different. I mean, I lived in Los Angeles for 30 years, but I only lived there probably 12 out of those 30. And so I'm more comfortable in motion than I am being still. But I expect, like everybody else, I need a fair amount of both. But one without the other, it's never been a rhythm in my own life, and I don't know how I would live that life kind of going forward.
Yeah. Well,
I think Rick Hatchett feels the same way. I think very, very, very much so. I mean, this is a guy that's been running from his past for so long that he's incapable of being still.
I mean, it seemed like there was this endless well of stories about being on the set of the White Lotus, which I think everyone knows. We want to hear about it. We want to hear about you guys being in this resort, seeing how people are in off-screen and on-screen. And everyone kind of had their different version of the story to tell. And you've talked openly about how playing Rick kind of puts you in this headspace, and it makes it not a fun retreat, not a fun resort thing. And I'm curious how you decided how you wanted to talk about that, because there's kind of the easy version where you talk about how beautiful it was and how happy it was to be there. But it seems like you wanted to be clear about it, about what it kind of takes from you to be in that headspace. So how did you decide that was what you wanted to share, and how honest you wanted to get about what that experience was like?
Well, I think everybody has their version of their experience, and their versions of this experience are authentic to their experience of this extraordinary opportunity. Really, it is the golden ticket in a way for any actor that wants to go through an existential crisis. I mean, nobody
does everyone want one? Does every actor want an existential crisis secretly?
Well, I think we all go through them in our personal lives, but to get to experience that, in a narrative fictional space is, that's so rich, isn't it? For the growth of the people the person that you're playing, but also for you personally. And so I don't know. I began fielding these questions probably earlier than anyone else, I believe, because everyone
of Fallout, because you're like doing press
everyone
early.
was still we were all in Thailand working, and I had a built-in block pretty early in the experience where I had to get on the road, for Fallout. And it was, an intense publicity schedule and to talk about this show. And, over the course of that, of course, people wanted to know what it was like filming the White Lotus. And I was deep into it at that time, 2 months into the experience. And it was emotionally hard, not being at a 5-star resort in Thailand,
sure,
just being in the headspace of this guy. But, I could say that about anything that I've ever done. The last year I don't remember, I think it was 9 episodes for the last season of The Shield, was horrendous. Every day was a struggle, but it's the golden handcuffs, isn't it? I mean, it's Stockholm syndrome. It's like the job that you are so intimidated about waking up and going to every day is the one that you don't want to end.
Yeah. Well, it's the trauma bonding is maybe overdoing it, but you're there with people like cast and crew, as you were saying, like you're there with your people, you're going through something together, and it's a bond that maybe doesn't break when you get off of a set, but it changes in some way. Like you're having this world together that you're building that you maybe want to hang on to.
I think so. And I think that is par for the course for, anything that I've done on any budget,
Yeah.
I did this movie, Them That Follow. I've been around for a long time, Katey, but this movie, Them That Follow, and we were, in this little small kind of town in Pennsylvania, and it was, Olivia Colman and Lewis Pullman and Caitlin Dever and, a number of other incredible actors. And, we were in a Holiday Inn Express and every day was like a struggle in the best way. And both in front of and behind the camera, you go through an experience together. On a Tarantino movie, it doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't matter how long it's been. Whenever you see someone that had the opportunity to live that life, you are instantly connected to them, and there is a love and a bond there that can never be shaken. And I would say the same for the White Lotus. And I would be so curious. I mean, Steve Zahn is a dear friend of mine. I know Connie Britton, but Steve is a dear buddy, and I can't imagine that if he were sitting here, he wouldn't say the same thing, or Theo, or any of the Michael Imperioli from season 2. It's just one of those experiences in life that you think, God, man, I did that.
Yeah.
That's what I did.
And, season 1, they were like immediately like first trip post-COVID. Like that was like the bubble of all bubbles on that one. I can't imagine how intense that was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right.
Well, and if I've got the timeline right, like you have your episodes with Sam Rockwell kind of late in filming, like it happened chronological more or less. So having a friend of yours kind of show up in the middle of that, you've been in your world and you have someone who from outside kind of, pop the bubble and come on in there. Is that strange to kind of open up in that way to someone who you know so well already?
That's a great question. Nobody's asked that. I mean, I think I did talk at one point about when that whole sequence was filmed. It was so lonely for so long in front of the camera, not behind the camera, but in front of the camera, just going to work and kind of carrying this load and watching everybody else have these, very open communications, open conversations with friends that they were going through this experience with. I mean, just talking specifically about the 3 ladies, Bibb and Monahan and Carrie, and the Gaytok and Lisa and Natasha and her son and Amy and I had that, and we had a deep connection and a deep friendship. But in the story, so much of it was without a true back and forth. I mean, so much of it was dictated by the struggle that Rick was going through that he didn't feel comfortable to talk to her about. But and so for me, having this for so long, looking and in anticipation of this friend that was going to come into Rick's life, Frank, and then for me, Walton knowing that person was going to be Sammy, and the day he showed up, I'll never forget getting out of that van in Bangkok and just running to his trailer and just I didn't even knock. I just opened the door and, he was in the makeup trailer and I just went and picked him up and just hugged him. It just felt like, oh God, some normalcy. I'm not a fucking freak. Excuse my language. I have friends too. I'm not this person, but, Rick is a very complicated guy, but there is a familiar, normal aspect to his personality that finally I get to experience.
Yeah. It's you have you're coming from camp and your friends there to see you. It's such a universal human feeling.
It is.
I love the way you've talked about how, people like Sam Rockwell, or I think you mentioned Pedro Pascal in other interviews, or people who you kind of came up with, people who you've watched work and work and work and work and finally get there and get recognition and get to a point of being like that. And there's a generosity in the way that I've heard you talk about it where, and you have your success also, so it doesn't have to be envy in the same way. But I feel like you see your friends succeed and you have that envy that's sitting there. So how are you processing that, watching your friends succeed, having seen it maybe happen before when you weren't in the place that you are now? Do you feel like the good guys are winning at some point? Is the system working the way that it's supposed to when you see, people get where they are after so many years of work like that?
Well, first and foremost, I've never had envy for any one of my friends and their success. And
you are lucky. The rest of us struggle with that.
Maybe, I just even in my personal life outside of, my friends that are also in this business, friends that have started companies and those companies took off, or are friends that, are traveling for a summer and I'm staying at home, or I know
that one.
When I was living in a guest house in Glendale, and some of my friends were living in Laurel Canyon, having just bought their house. I've never been envious of anyone. That's not the right word. That word is not applicable to me. I am on my journey, and my path is my path, and the thing that I've always had since I landed in Los Angeles 33 years ago now is access to work. And, I got my first job after I'd been there for a week. And so how could I be envious of anyone when I'm able to make a living as an artist? I mean, that's the point, isn't it? Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter. Okay, yeah, well, it would be nice I suppose, to be Jason Bourne in Bourne Identity, but are you going to be envious of Matt Damon? That's fucking ridiculous. Why would you ever do that? And so if by using your words, my generosity towards my friends and celebrating in their success has always been earnest, because I don't know any other way to be, meaning that, do I want more for myself? Absolutely. Do I want to become better at what it is that I'm asking myself to do? Since the day I was born, hopefully, but it's never in comparison to somebody else's journey. I wasn't taught that. I never had examples of that behavior by the people that raised me. And so that feeling was not anathema to who I am, but it was just foreign. And that may sound like, he's lying, or he's just sugarcoating this. Go back. I've been talking to people for 30 fucking years, 25 for sure on record, and it's pretty evident, all the way from the very beginning. The day that Michael Chiklis got nominated for an Emmy for The Shield, no one screamed louder than me. The day that CCH Pounder got nominated, no one screamed louder than me. The day I showed up and worked with Owen Wilson and Jackie Chan on Shanghai Noon, no one was screaming louder than me for everything all the good things that happened to Owen before that and after that. I'm happy with my life, and I have been happy with every stage of my journey as an artist. And so that doesn't change now.
Yeah.
Somebody will always have more than you. Always. And people will have less than you. And the trick is not to envy people that have more than you, but have grace and dignity when it comes to talking to people that don't have as much as you.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's twofold, right? That's why wouldn't anyone want to move through the world like that?
Yeah, I mean, it's not just remembering where you came from, but just, being aware that the world contains all of it, right? That like everyone is at a different spot and where they are. And it is easy to lose track of that, I think, when people can be so singularly focused on where they're trying to get for themselves that you can forget that.
Yeah. Yeah. Where are you trying to get for yourself?
I mean, I'm in an interesting spot now where here doing this podcast and like writing a newsletter, like I'm visible in a way that I wasn't before in my old job where I was more of an editor, kind of behind the scenes, which I liked a lot. So, I mean, and actors have to deal with this all the time, right? Where like you're a brand or you have to be like, your face or your voice or something stands for something. And I'm kind of figuring out what that means and how to do that without, I don't want to be an Instagram influencer, but you're on Instagram. Like you get that like putting yourself out there is part of the work and can be really satisfying in its own way. And I'm kind of trying to figure out what I want that to mean. I don't know if you figured out what that means for you.
You know what? I think that is, you just hit it on the nail on the head in the sense that, who are you? Who are you personally and who are you publicly? I found that being the same in both of those spaces is the easiest way to go.
But also what do you say for yourself, right? Like there's parts of yourself that you do want to keep for yourself. And what are those?
Right. Absolutely. And also there are parts of yourself that you want to share with people if that's a new expected form of communication over the last 10 years, right? You're not cultivating, at least I'm not. I don't cultivate a part of myself that is presentational.
Sure.
But I do cultivate a part of myself and communicate with the people who like what it is that I do for a living and as in an authentic way as I possibly can. And so, that's a factor for sure. Yeah.
I mean, presumably you get a lot of people being like, well, if you posted this or if you presented yourself in this way, you would get, 10 more followers or $5 million or something like that. Like, anyone who has any kind of acting career faces the people who think that they know how to tell you how to be yourself better than you know how to be yourself. So,
well, you know what? And I think a lot of people heed that advice.
Yeah, totally.
I'm not one of them. Literally, the very thing that you said, I've had that said to me by more than a few people, right? And that this is currency and this translates into something. And I said, well, it doesn't for me. My life is not affected by it. And I'm not going to alter the way in which I kind of communicate with the world around me because I might get something, monetarily from it. That just seems ridiculous. That just doesn't seem reasonable. And it worked out okay for me.
Well, you get to a point where Walmart's like, hey, we want that. And we think that that's valuable. You're like, hey, look at there. I didn't have to change anything. And it worked out.
Well, you know what? And not only did I not have to change anything, I'm becoming more myself. Right. And so
that's great.
I did it I've been able to, luckily, through the grace of God, whoever she is, been able to do it on my terms. And I'm enjoying this season of my life and working with these corporations as much as I am anything else. It's like, okay, well, I've never done that before, really on this scale. Well, what does that look like? And what is my version of that? Right. It's not standing, in front of a camera and trying to model behavior that I've seen other people do in those situations over a very long period of time. It's like, well, who am I in this world?
Yeah.
How do I communicate with people? And, for better or for worse, it's what I say, it's worked out for me, meaning that I derive great pleasure from it.
Yeah.
I love telling a story in 30 seconds. I think that's so interesting. Never done that before. That's really
That's
cool.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah. Last question for you before I let you go pack for your trip. Well, you've got Fallout coming back, so that's consistent, but Gemstones is over. And that feels like a really big comedy outlet. Like, go have fun on set with your friends, not go through the torment you're talking about being Rick Hackett. Do you feel like you need to find something else to fill that spot for you? Is there not another Baby Billy? He's one of a kind, but does that feel like you need to find another comedy outlet to balance with everything else you got going forward?
Wow. How do I answer?
Maybe we'll learn in the future how that might work out.
I've been very fortunate over the course of my career, certainly over these last 10 years, to have participated in multiple things at one time. And I say yes more than I say no, because the story is something that moves me, whether a lot of people see it or whether they don't. I did this show. I forget the name of the network, to be quite honest with you, but it was called Deep State, and it was while I was doing a number of other things, and penetrated a bit here, but it's a fucking great story. Like, it's so much fun, and that was hard, like emotionally brutal. The Righteous Gemstones, believe it or not, was hard. I mean,
there's a lot of sad stuff going on in the background.
When you get
show.
to some of that stuff for Baby Billy, those days are hard. But yeah. There's a lot about the White Lotus that's also funny, and a lot about Justified was really, really hard, but it's also funny. And so I don't really look for something that isn't there. I just try to honor the truth in the moment. And there are a number of things that I'm working on right now or looking at, which are movies that I want to do that hopefully kind of straddle both of those outlets, for expression. And I did just go on vacation with Danny McBride. So,
we're counting on it. We need you guys to stay together forever.
You never know what's going to happen. But I'm always looking to laugh. I'm always looking to cry. I'm just looking to be moved, man. That's the life. I mean, how much time do I have left on this planet? Hopefully 30 years. God, that's short, isn't it? I'm 53 and having the time of my life. And I would imagine that sitting behind this microphone, like in this medium, at the nascent stage of the next iteration of your experience, you would say the same thing. And then, what will you do after this? And what's the interview that you're looking for, right after a very serious conversation with someone or a very funny conversation with someone? You can dictate the flow of that conversation, the river of that conversation, only as much as you can. And it's like, okay, well, you know what? I'd like to talk to a librarian. Well, I want to understand the state of checking out books in the middle of this country.
All I ever want to do is ask people what they're up to and how their jobs work. It's the best thing in the world.
So maybe this is just maybe this is all leading to your own talk show, Katey.
So tell me how your job works. That's the name of my next podcast.
Great. At the end of the day, I will say this, since if we are closing up, what I will say is that going on this journey with all of these people, going to work every day with Mike White as the writer, director, being in frames by Ben Hutchins, our DP, who's also nominated, along with producer David Bernad and Mark Kamine and John, our editor, understanding how competent this man is as an editor, being given an invitation to show up in this room with a number of people in this cast that have been nominated and a number of technicians from this show that have been nominated. And after being in this business for 30 years, I know a lot of people in that room that aren't on the White Lotus. And to get an opportunity to sit in that audience with those people, and whether they get called up on that stage or they don't, everybody in that room has already won. And a lot
You're
of
going to
those,
have such a good time seeing
and
people
a lot of those
and shaking
people,
hands.
a lot of those people, man, you know, I've known those people for so long, and I've seen their journey. And, you know, there isn't a life worth living where the road to being given an invitation to sit in that room and watch that show that isn't worthwhile. And I'm grateful that mine's one of them. And this is my third opportunity, you know, to be a fan and to
back
bring
to back
joy.
too, 2 years in a row.
And who knows if that'll ever happen again. So
yeah,
I'm just I'm grateful to be here and grateful for this conversation. And
same to you. The only reason I have to let you go is Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg are going to hop on any second.
Fuck Seth. Fuck Evan. Hey, man, you tell them I said hello. And,
I will. I was kind of hoping they'd barge in, but I think they're running a little bit late.
Please tell them I said hello, and I'm such a fan, and good luck.
That does it for today's episode. We will have multiple more bonus episodes for you this week, including a special Wednesday edition that is a must listen for anyone who has the same taste in reality TV that I do. And there will be another bonus Saturday interview as well. And if you're a subscriber to Prestige Junkie After Party, you are, of course, getting video versions of all of these regular podcasts, plus access to exclusive bonus episodes like the Fall Festival Draft that we published last week, and an exclusive subscriber-only Substack Live coming up this Friday. It is a great time to join. There's so much going on in the world of fall festivals and movies. Join us at prestigejunkie.substack.com. This podcast is edited by Brett Fuchs and produced by Brett Fuchs and me. Our theme music is by Dave Gonzalez. Thanks again to our co-host this week, Esther Zuckerman. Subscribe to the Prestige Junkie newsletter at theankler.com and subscribe to this podcast on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. To join the after party, go to prestigejunkie.afterparty.substack.com. We'll see you a few more times this week.